Hello, this is David Orlus, author of Dangers on the Book. I am pleased to read you Chapter 1. Chapter 1, A Job That Doesn't Exist. I have a job that doesn't exist. Whether within my close family circle, among friends, or with people I met at dinners, events, and professional gatherings, I've noticed that I don't have exact and precise terms to describe my professional activity. Business owner isn't enough. Inevitably, people ask, in what field? If I specify private security, it's too limiting. People think I am in the business of providing security guards. If I mention private detective, private investigators, I see knowing smiles, often tied to cliché stories. When I talked about economic intelligence, my listeners get lost. It's still too abstract a concept for most of them. When I start to explain in more detail my activities in close protection and crisis management, labels inevitably surface. Spy, secret agent, operative, or even mercenary, along with all the questions and fantasies that such terms provoke. I have to deploy all my pedagogical skills and illustrate my daily work with concrete examples so that people can understand my job that doesn't exist. It's all quite frustrating because for Anglo-Saxon audiences, corporate security is a perfectly clear concept. Furthermore, I am increasingly being asked to share my professional experience, particularly with students. On these occasions, they often ask me, how did you get there? How much time do you have? Because I fell into it and when I was just a kid. How can I explain the path I've taken? How did it all begin? Where should I start to tell the story? Perhaps simply from the beginning. As far as I can remember, even in childhood, I was drawn to freedom, adventure, great causes, and vast open spaces. My early readings may have sparked this thirst, the famous Five, and, above all, the Six Companions by Paul-Jacques Bonzon. Who even remembers him today? He recounted the adventures of a group of kids from Lyon, particularly from a popular district named Croix-Rousse. From those adventures, I took away the spirit of camaraderie, the pursuit of truth and justice, and the desire to protect the vulnerable. With my fourth grade class, we went to see a movie at the Palais des Congrès in Lyon that left a profound mark on me. The movie called Messieurs les Gosses, Mr. Kid, somewhat in the style of The Adventure of Tom Sawyer. I immediately identified with the main character, a gang leader, rebellious, free, and proud. Just like in the Three Musketeers, I also found that spirit of brotherhood, all for one and one for all. In the same vein, I devoured The War of the Buttons. I was quickly drawn to the world of the military. I remember watching a Saturday morning show about military service and buying weekly issues of Elite Troop, a weekly magazine or monthly magazine, and I developed a strong interest in history, a passion that has never faded. At that time, I discovered that both my grandfather and great-grandfather had been officers trained at Saint-Cyr, the Officer Academy, one of them belonging to the Morocco Sharia class of 1925-1927, and my great-grandfather was member of the Adam Tonkin class of 1885-1887, respectively. The first, Captain Charles Ornus, began his career as an officer inside the Tirailleur in Algeria before attending the War Superior School, where he was part of the same cohort as a certain Captain de Hautecloque, who would later become General Leclerc. The second, Commandant Pérouse, died from wounds sustained in 1916 and had been a classmate of the future General Weygand. I also learned that the Ornus family, whose military roots trace back to a Napoleonic hussard, wounded 6 times by 6 saber strikes at the Battle of Jena, had lost several sons during both World Wars. In World War I, they were Captain Henri Charles Ornus, 33 years old, from the 2nd Colonial Infantry. His brother, Lieutenant Jean-Paul Ornus, 29 years old, from the 113th Infantry. Both my great-granduncles, and George Ornus, my grandfather's brother, a medical officer and lieutenant in the 152 Infantry Regiment, who was killed in action during the 1940 campaign. Interestingly, Alphonse Daudet mentions a Sergeant Hornus in his book, The Standard Bearer, in his Monday Tales. My father, who enlisted voluntarily at 17 and a half in the 13th Battalion of Alpine Troops, followed the elite training course at the High Mountain School as part of the second class of military ski scout. He later left for Algeria as a young sergeant after the Evian Accords. My fascination with military history and the selflessness it embodies likely stemmed from the fact that I was fortunate to know both of my maternal great-grandfather until my teenage years. They were also veterans of the World War I, and I still hold them in boundless admiration. I especially remember Michel Poulet, known as Pepe Poulet, who passed away in 1985 at the age of 95. For those, my childhood, we had countless conversations. He served from his military conscription in 1911 until his demobilization in 1919. Engaged in the early battles from August 1914 with the 17th Infantry Regiment, he was wounded and became a medic, tasked with rescuing the wounded on the battlefield. He experienced Verdun, La Marne. He was awarded the Military Medal and the Croix de Guerre, War Cross, both of which I keep with great reverence. In the trenches, he crossed paths with a famous lawyer who later became Ministry of Navy, Master Campanci. I even found a signed photograph from Campanci to my great-grandfather in our family archives. My other great-grandfather, Gaston Fournier, served with the Mallory Regiment's 4th Engineer Regiment of La Valbonne and was gassed at Verdun. One Saturday morning, after the weekly military program, my father asked me about my future plans. Seeing my interest in all things military, he suggested that I read The Centurion, a book written by Jean Lartigue. When I showed little enthusiasm, he asked if I had any idea what the book was about. I naively replied it must be a book about story and Roman army. Smirking, he said, "You'd better read it." By introducing me to The Centurion, my father had no idea what it was setting in motion. I went on to read almost all of Jean Lartigue's works. I also discovered the works of Pierre Schendorfer, with whom we share a family connection, as my great-grandfather Hornus had married Schendorfer. Pierre Schendorfer has been a war correspondent during Indochina War and wrote a lot of books, and he was in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, and then several years after, he realized several movies regarding French army in Indochina and French army in Algeria.